Imam Abdul-Wahhab al-Sha'rani, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he's amazing, right? I'm going to share some few things, right? It's amazing. Everyone memorize that name. Imam Abdul-Wahhab al-Sha'rani. SubhanAllah. Spiritual giant, a master of his time. He was a student, I told you, of Zakaria al-Ansari. The great Zakaria al-Ansari. He was a student of Jalaluddin al-Suyuti. SubhanAllah. He was a student of Suyuti, and he was only like 10 years old. As-Suyuti was a master of the Islamic sciences, like a master. He wrote hundreds of books. He's in the company of As-Suyuti. He's in the company of Imam Zakaria al-Ansari, Imam al-Ramli. He's in the time of Ibn Hajar al-Haytami. Now let me just give you an example. So he grew up. Remember I was telling you yesterday about Habib Umar bin Zayn bin Sumayt, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And I told you his father, Habib Zayn bin Alawi Sumayt, he was a student of Imam Al-Haddad, and he used to take his son to the sessions of Imam Al-Haddad. And when Imam Al-Haddad died, his son was only 12 years old. And at 12 years old, he was already a spiritual master. And so was the case of Imam Abdul-Wahhab al-Sha'rani. I told you when he was in a session of a Suyuti, he was born like 898. So he was only, when As-Suyuti died, like 12, 13 years old. He was a kid. But he's in that session as a kid. Ash-Sha'rani, but look how they prepared. Ash-Sha'rani was raised by his mother. His father had died, and his mother put him in a session of the scholars, right? So everybody talking about single parents. He was raised by a single parent. His mom raised him. His father died when he was young. He memorized the Qur'an by the time he was 8 years old. 8 years old, he memorized the whole Qur'an. By the time he was like pubescent, 12, 11, around that area, Imam al-Sha'rani used to recite the entire Qur'an in prayer in one rak'ah. SubhanAllah. He was a kid. Now you understand when he was in the session of Suyuti what type of person he was? By 8, he memorized the Qur'an. By the time he was pubescent, 12, 11, 10, 13, around that area, he would pray one rak'ah and recite the entire Qur'an. What kind of state was he at? You talking about muraqabah? You talking about being aware and being present? This is a kid. And he's reciting the entire Qur'an in one rak'ah. You know, it's only a few in this nation who were like that. Among the Sahaba, one that was like that was Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan. He used to recite the whole Qur'an in one rak'ah. Some of the Tabi'een, Imam Abu Hanifa, he used to recite the Qur'an in one rak'ah. So listen, these were from the Salaf, right? Uthman ibn Affan from the Sahaba. I think one of the Tabi'een, a few of them had that. Imam Abu Hanifa from the Tabi'een as well, right? Or from the Atba'i Tabi'een, if you want to deny his meeting of some of the Sahaba, some do. But all of them were from the Salaf. Here comes ash-Sha'rani, way after the time of the Salaf, 600 years after the time of the Salaf. He's a kid, a young lad, and he's reciting the entire Qur'an in one rak'ah. He memorizes Matan Abi Suja'a. That's in Shafi'i fiqh, whole thing, a Muqtasar. He memorized Al-Minhaj of Imam al-Nawawi by heart. He memorized Al-Ajurumiyya. He memorized Alfiya ibn Malik, or Ibn Malik, all of these stuff, and many other stuff he had in his book. In his book, At-Tabaqat al-Kubra, he mentions pages of books that he memorized and read. And then at the end of it, he said, if anyone doubts, bring any one of these books. I'll recite it from my memory. SubhanAllah. It's a giant. Ash-Sha'rani. And one day I'm going to share more of these things, because when you read about these people, you be like, and then when someone come tell us that they were misguided and, you know, we don't follow madhahib, man, you crazy. Seriously. Like, you are Majnoon. When you know about our scholars and their ranks of Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah and how they were, you can't list this stuff as child's play when you look like this. I just was a kid, and it's not just one. He was one among many. We talked about Imam al-Haddad when he was a kid. Imam al-Haddad used to pray as a child before puberty 200 rak'ah a day, besides the other obligatory prayers and the sunnahs before and after. 200 rak'ah a day. These people were masters. You know why? It wasn't just outward stuff. It was they connected to the spiritual realm. They were getting assistance from the spiritual realm. They were people who were masters of this religion, inwardly and outwardly. That's what we want. That's what we want, right? We want to taste that, and we want to make our children like that, right? Not just people who are forms with no reality. We need reality, not just a form. But if we keep listening to people who are only form, and we keep just concentrating on the apparent and never get towards the inward reality, we missing stuff. And it's important, you know. So I tell these stories, and because I would like where we just have sessions and we just talk about the Awliya of Allah, talk about the righteous, talk about their states. That becomes the environment. There's realities behind this stuff that we need to tap into. It ain't just physical. It ain't just form. And this is something that we need to revive in our communities. Many people, they don't speak on these issues, for whatever reason they do it. But my thing is to instill in the people a love for the way of Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah in creed, ash-Sha'rani, Maturidiyya, in practice, Hanafiya, Malikiyya, Shafi'iyya, Hanabila, and in spirituality, the way of at-Tasawwuf, the way of at-Turuq al-Sufiyya, the Sufi paths. May Allah allow us to be steadfast on the way of Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah and not be confused in that issue. Naam, go ahead, Sayyidi.